Okay, I'm recording now.
Very good.
So thank you so much, Stephen Owyoung, for coming and joining us today. It is my great pleasure to introduce our speaker for today. Stephen Owyoung will be delivering a talk entitled Drinking from the Dragon's Well. And I love that poetic title, Tea in Chinese History and Culture. And Professor Marsili and I are grateful to, of course, Mr. Owyoung, and also to all of you who were the ones who suggested something or expressed interest in something on the history of food. So Mr. Owyoung, Stephen D. Owyoung, is the former curator of, so the one just previous to this current one, Philip Hu. He is the former curator of Asian arts at the St. Louis Art Museum, which has a superb collection in Asian arts, which Mr. Owyoung can tell us much more about. And he has also served as curator at the Fogg Art Museum at Harvard University in the past. With an MA and a PhD candidacy in art history from the University of Michigan, he is a specialist in Chinese painting. And I am grateful to him especially for helping me with my first book. And he has many, many decades of experience in the Asian art field, including exceptional experience in museum work at the world-class National Palace Museum in Taipei, they're all world-class, the Freer Gallery of Art, the Fogg Art Museum, and then here in St. Louis. Since 1972, his publications consist of translations, articles, catalogs on Chinese and Japanese art, I think a book that's not related to a catalog, as well as in the last 2 decades on the subject of tea, or that's what I was looking at your CV, Stephen, and it looked like, I thought it was the last 10 years. It sounds like the last 20 years, articles and other works on the subject of tea, for which he, I just learned, has a forthcoming book, The Book of Tea. And so thank you. Oh, one more thing. This talk is sponsored by the Co-Curricular Funds, which is part of the Office of the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences and the New Center for Asian Studies. So I'll hand this over to Mr. Owyoung. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Lee, for your kind introduction, and good morning. Welcome to Drinking from the Dragon's Well. Tea, Camellia sinensis. In lore and legend, tea was the splendid tree. According to ancient myth, tea was discovered by Shannon, the divine cultivator. One day, Shannon sat in the shade of a fine tree when a breeze suddenly blew, a leafy shower, down into his cauldron of boiling water. Enticed by the rising aroma, Shannon tasted the brew and found it pleasantly bitter with a lingering sweetness. Sipping again, he was refreshed, yet relaxed, alert, yet calm, clear-minded and focused. Thereafter, the divine cultivator shared tea with the people. The taste of tea is bitter. In ancient times, its bitterness was used in cooking and mixed in stews with fish or fowl. And in time, tea went from pantry to parlor as refreshment to guests. Recipes included ginger, scallion, citrus, and so on. And then tea became a drink enjoyed for itself. Its fine color, bittersweet flavor, and beautiful fragrance. Tea is a subtropical plant native to parts of India, Southeast Asia, and China. Found in the uplands among clouds and cool mists, tea is indigenous to the Yunnan Plateau, a highland in southwest China, where wild tea grows as evergreen arboreals of great height and girth, where tribal peoples, the Yi, Miao, and Dai, harvest tea by climbing to pluck its large leaves. Some 20,000 years ago, a smaller variety of tea spread from Yunnan to Sichuan, where it was cultivated as a shrub, a bush kept low by pruning and picking its small, fine leaves. Tea belongs to the large botanical family Diaceae and of the genus Camellia, consisting of two primary varieties, sinensis and assamica. As a genus, tea is related to the garden ornamental, Camellia. Tea, however, has simple white petaled blossoms. But like the ornamental, tea blooms in the autumn to yield clusters of trilobed fruit, husks, and seeds, which when planted, produce a sturdy sapling with a long taproot. In time, tea spread throughout China, as far north as the Shandong Peninsula. Camellia sinensis is cultivated on estates known as tea gardens. Each spring season brings a flush of new leaves. The harvest and production run from the months of March through April and into May. Tea comes in many forms. 61 countries produce tea, with China highest in tons. Among Chinese teas, there are variations of 6 types: green, white, yellow, oolong, black, and pu'er. Tea is brewed in several ways, producing infusions with various characteristics and effects. When prepared by a tea master, tea may be a beverage, a tonic, or medicinal, with numerous health benefits. Tea in the kitchen is used for its many culinary features. And these can be prepared in many ways. One favorite way to have tea is called yin cha or yum cha, literally to drink tea. It's a time with family and friends to enjoy dim sum or jianxin, foods that dot the heart and hit the spot. And where tea is a beverage, a palate cleanser, and a digestive. In the temple, shrine, or family altar, tea is offered as sacrifice to heaven and earth, the ancestors, and the deities of Buddhism and Taoism. In popular Taoism, tea is sacrificed to the deified philosopher, Lao Tzu. Among the faithful, tea is a purifier, fortifier, and a meditational aid. To the deities, immortals, and the perfected, tea is offered as the metaphorical elixir of life and immortality. The story of tea begins in the New Stone Age. For the last 12,000 years, tea culture was transmitted through trade and migration along the Yangtze River to the East Coast. In 2004, archaeological evidence of tea was found in Zhejiang, near the port city of Ningbo, below the slopes of Jade Screen Mountain. The Ningbo Plain is a marsh that was periodically inundated from land and sea. Eventually, the Neolithic settlements at Khomudung and Snail Hill were abandoned to floodwaters. The excavation revealed that sediment had buried the site in anaerobic silt, which preserved remnants of architecture, stone, wood, pottery, as well as bone food and produce. The ceramic decor revealed a notable appreciation of plants and horticulture. As shown in this design on a piece of pottery. Excavation of the residential and living spaces exposed plant roots arranged in rows in several shallow pits. Tests of the roots discovered theanine, a rare amino acid specific to and plentiful in tea. Like other wild and cultivated plants, tea is in the diet of Neolithic people. Tea also appeared in the archaeological record of the 5th century BC during the Warring States period. In 2018, tea was discovered in present Shandong among the remains of the state of Zhu and its ancient capital of Zhocheng. The royal palace was the heart of the capital, which was bounded on the north by Mount Yi and the royal cemetery, which was at Xigang, where the ancient necropolis held the tombs of the ruler and his consort, whose graves had been plundered long ago. However, archaeologists found jades and remnants of gilt lacquers and a cache of ceramics on a ledge above the grave. Originally encased in a wooden chest, the pottery consisted of pairs of jars, bowls, and a covered urn. 2 small bowls were also found, one of which was filled with earth and plant material. The bowl was reported as proto-porcelain, a high-fired porcellaneous stoneware with a greenish feldspathic iron glaze. On the ledge of the tomb, the bowl was found overturned, its contents compacted and sealed in a fine, dry, wind-blown dust. Initially, the palm-sized lump of earth and plant matter went unidentified. However, testing found that the cellular structure of the plant and the abundance of calcium salt crystals, genus Camellia. Likewise, the presence of caffeine and theanine identified the plant material as tea, the dark remnants of which adhered to the bottom and sides of the bowl. It was speculated that both the bowl and tea were imported from the south, for the state of Zhu was too far north for the production of tea, and the only southern states of Wu and Yue produce both tea and the fine green glazed porcellaneous stoneware known as celadon. Here was the first evidence of tea and celadon, an aesthetic relationship between plant and pottery that endures to this day. Another archaeological find dates to the Han Dynasty in the 2nd century BCE. Its capital located nearly 500 miles west of Shandong in the Wei River Valley, at the ancient capital of Chang'an, where the imperial palace received tea as tribute. North of the capital, across the Wei River, are the northern suburbs and Hanyangling, the imperial necropolis marked by a pyramidal tumulus, the tomb of Emperor Jingdi. The tomb was surrounded by 86 trenches containing funerary goods, including rows of small terracotta figures representing attendants to the emperor in the afterlife. One pit contained vegetal remains, a dark brown mass of leaves in a brick shape. This was found to be exclusively tea buds, a premium tea sent as tribute to the emperor. The likely source of the tea was tribute from the southern states, such as the Principality of Chu, ruled by members of the Han imperial family at Changsha. Where the elite were buried outside the city, at a place known as Mawangdui. Upon excavation, archaeologists discovered a tomb and the extraordinary techniques used to preserve the grave, funerary goods, and the embalmed body of the deceased. The tomb was divided into sections for the placement of small funerary figures, lacquerwares, and silks, as well as food and medicine. all of which surrounded 3 nested coffins of lacquered painted wood. The coffins covered by a funerary pall of painted silk, which represented the heavens, the earth, and the underworld, and included the portrait of the deceased, known as Lady of Dai. In one part of the tomb was a section for food storage that contained a woven basket case bearing the label Jiasi, a case of tea. The likely source of the tea lay 120 miles south of Changsha in a place known as Tea Mountain. Cultivated, harvested, and processed, the tea was packaged and sent as tribute to Lady Dai in Changsha, and perhaps as far as over 600 miles north to Chang'an as tribute to Emperor Jingdi during his lifetime, for the funerary stores of his tomb as sacrifice for his use in the afterlife. Four centuries later, the empire was divided. The Three Kingdoms period was named after the states of Shu, Wei, and Wu. Of the three, Shu is in present Sichuan and was the ancient homeland of tea. And Wu, the center of Southern art and culture, with tea production in the marquisate of Wuchang in present Chajing. According to the record of Wuxing, imperial tea was produced 6 miles west of Wuchang at Mount Wen, just northwest of Wuchang, along the southern shore of Lake Tai in Zhejiang. Fog and mist often shrouded Mount Wen, such that in antiquity it was known as Cloudy Peak, the summit obscured by an auspicious yellow haze and purple clouds. The mystic aura of Mount Wen touched all flora and fauna, including the tea planted on its slopes. The notion of early imperial tea at Wuchang was supported in 1990, southwest of Mount Wen, where an early celadon jar dating to the 3rd century was discovered in a late Han-style brick tomb. The jar was manufactured for the storage of tea and bore the character tea as a significant part of its decor. Under the glaze of the shoulder, the jar bore the character cha, incised neatly in character script. Created with a stylus, the character consists of 4 straight and angled lines and 2 dots, a simplified rendering of the character cha, indicating that the jar was for the storage of tea. Dated to the 3rd century, the vessel is the earliest known ware expressly dedicated to tea by inscription. The celadon jar was likely made near Wuchang, which also produced tribute tea from the imperial states on Mount Wen. During the time of Sun Hao, the Marquis of Wuchang, who later became emperor of the kingdom of Wu and provided the early precedent for 1, the intimate connection between tea and dynasty, 2, the close relationship of tea and celadon, and 3, the importance of Lake Tai as the eye of tea culture. In the Tang dynasty, Chang'an was again the imperial capital, where tea was elevated within the palace as an etiquette and a culinary art. The importance of tea at court was revealed in the imperial gifts of silver, gold, glass, and celadon to the Famen Temple, 75 miles east of Chang'an. Famen was a Buddhist monastery dedicated to the historical Buddha. Excuse me. After his death, extinguishing the cycle of rebirth, the Buddha's relics were gathered, placed in reliquaries, and distributed from India to distant Buddhist establishments, including Famen Temple in China, where in 662, a palace and a pagoda were constructed to contain a figure bone of the Buddha. The pagoda stood for over 1,000 years until a rainstorm one night in 1981, when the pagoda was destroyed. Excavation of the foundations revealed a covered stone trench of 3 chambers, known as the underground palace, including a hidden case of nested caskets containing the relic, called the finger bone of the Buddha. Among the other treasures were imperial donations of tea implements and utensils once used in the palace, such as a tea caddy, an openwork basket, a grinding mill, a box and sifter, a container for powdered tea, and a parcel gilt basin, a salt cellar, and a glass tea bowl and stand. The use of such implements was codified and transformed into an art form, the early tenets of which were set out in the Chajing, the Book of Tea. Written in 780 by the scholar and tea master Owyoung. Composed in 10 parts, the Book of Tea was the first treatise on the cultivation of the tea plant, the manufacture of tea, and the preparation and service of tea as beverage. Tea in the Tang dynasty came in many forms, including fresh leaves, dried, loose, or compressed leaves, pastes and gels. And it was also preserved as wafers and cakes of dried paste and pulp. During the Tang, caked tea was placed in a mill and ground, and then sifted to a very fine powder. Spring water then filled a cauldron of silver and heated on a bronze brazier. Through successive stages of boiling, defined by bubbles described as fish eyes, strong pearls, and waves. The tea powder was added and gently simmered into a fragrant, thin soup, afloat with a fine light foam. Using a gourd ladle, the tea was served from the cauldron into celadon bowls of porcelaneous stoneware, every portion topped with an ample helping of froth. The bowls of tea were then served to the guests. Lu Yu wrote that tea be served in bowls of yue, for yue is like jade, yue is like ice, yueware is celadon, and thus the color of tea appears greenish. The prescription reflected the long tradition of green wares associated with tea and the art of tea. Going back 500 years was the 3rd century, and many centuries before to the Warring States period. Written over 1,000 years ago, the Chajing remains the single most important work on tea, and Lu Yu, the epitome of the accomplished tea master. After the fall of the Tang, the Song dynasty was established with its capital at Kaifeng, Henan. The sights of the city were seen from high atop the Dragon Pavilion and from the great city gate. Tea was served in restaurants and tea houses, festooned with decorative scaffolds of bamboo and flowers. Tea was everywhere, from the upper floors to down in the streets, where tea peddlers sampled each other's wares. As in the Tang, caked tea was sent as annual tribute to the emperor. But in the Song dynasty, caked tea was decorated with various designs in the form of rounds, squares, and wafers, with such names as soaring dragon in auspicious clouds. The Song emperor, Huizong, was one of the greatest connoisseurs of the age. An artist, poet, calligrapher, collector, and practitioner of the art of tea. Huizong also wrote the treatise on tea and included tea in his paintings, such as the scroll Elegant Gathering, where tea preparation was a major feature. Emperor Huizong received his caked tea from the imperial tea estates far to the south at North Park, Fujian. Fujian was also renowned for the tea bowls known as tenmoku, with glazes described as rabbit's fur. To prepare tea in the Song manner, the cake or wafer was powdered and placed in a bowl. Hot water was added and whisked to a thick foam. Huizong is remembered as one of the greatest tea masters in history. "200 years later, the Ming dynasty was established by the Hongwu emperor at the ancient capital of Nanjing, where he received tributes of tea at the Chaotian Palace. Cake tea was still produced at the imperial estates in North Viet and Mount Guzhou near Lake Tai, until Hongwu abolished caked tea in 1375, and stores of caked tea gradually disappeared. Instead of cake tea, the emperor directed the presentation of whole leaf tea as annual tribute, of which Guzhou purple shoot tea was his favorite. Guzhou was noted for its leaf being pale yellow, not green, and unlike the pan-fired teas of the Ming, its leaves were first steamed and then dried over a low fire. The emperor's tea was steeped in imperial blue and white porcelain. When brewed and sipped from small cups, Guju was clear like jade dew, pale green with a yellow glow. During the Ming Dynasty, Lake Tai was home to the Wu School, a literary society that focused its artistic activities around tea. And the society was led by Shen Zhou, an artist from Suzhou, who promoted several specialities of Lake Tai. Its water, clay, and tea. Wuxi in the north possessed the finest water. At Mount Hui, a place known as the second spring under heaven. On the west, Yixing possessed the special clays and kiln that produced the finest unglazed stoneware, a ceramic known as Yixingware. In the east, Suzhou grew the finest tea on the slopes of Tiger Hill. When paired with the water from Mount Hui and steeped in the unglazed rustic stoneware pots from Yixing, Tiger Hill tea was noted for its scent of wintry beans and a taste like the scent of bean flowers. The flavor tended to be pure and light with a stony quality. When properly brewed, the tea was like white jade or the color of moonlight. Shenzhou often invited the Suzhou tea master, Wang Lai, to his home where Wang was a master of ceremony, arranging gatherings devoted to artistic, literary, and culinary pursuits. It was recorded that Wang Lai often brings Shenzhou beautiful tea, brewing and serving it to the old man, always in this fine manner. At this gathering, the old man sipped through 7 cups and savored the full beauty of it all. The Ming Dynasty fell to the Manchu, warriors of the northern steppes, who established their capital at Beijing, where the Forbidden City, with its many great halls, was the center of the empire, and Qianlong, its greatest emperor. Qianlong ascended the throne at age 24. And during his lifetime, he was the ruler of the wealthiest and most populous country in the world. In his middle age, Qianlong embarked on a long southern tour of inspection. Destination, Hangzhou. To visit the lake and mountains just south of Lake Tai. During his reign, Qianlong made 6 such tours. Each progress took 4 months, the emperor often riding on horseback in the midst of a retinue of thousands. At the southern end of the tour was picturesque Hangzhou, an ancient capital celebrated by poets for its art and culture. Bounded by the shores of beautiful West Lake, The city was renowned for its cuisine, pleasure quarters, and scenic sites. Of special interest to Qianlong were the lands that lay just beyond the city and lake. A trip to taste the tea grown in the lush gardens of the nearby mountains, and to drink from the local sweetwater spring named Dragon Well that lent its name to a special green tea. Qianlong called on the abbot of Hugong Temple, a place known for a reserved tea picked from 18 special bushes. Qianlong was first shown a small mound of loose tea. Each leaf was pan-fired to a flat oblate, uniformly dark green. As the tea steeped, the keeper explained that the water had been taken just that morning from the nearby spring, the spring of running tigers, one of the most famous sources of water in the empire. Crystal clear and tasting pure and sweet, the water brought forth the rich quality and color of the tea. So well matched was the water to the tea that they were known as the twin absolutes. Then tea was served. Qianlong sipped the golden green liquid, its grassy aroma and robust flavor filling his senses. The taste of Dragon Well was described as strong and rich, its color like light gold, its essence still and deep. It is long on the palate and on the tongue. It is fresh and moist and full. In the instant that the emperor took a sip, he reenacted the mystic moment when tea was first tasted and Qianlong was at once transformed, if only for a moment, into the immortal Shenlong, the divine cultivator, God Emperor, and ancient discoverer of tea. Delighted by the tea, the emperor proclaimed Dragon Well an imperial commission and ordered the abbot to send the tea from the temple's 18 bushes as annual tribute to the Forbidden City. By drinking tea every day of his life, Qianlong heeded the advice of the famous Tang monk, Zhao, who advised everyone he met to go drink tea. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Stephen.
You're welcome.
Could you take some questions?
Oh, sure.
Okay, great. Yeah, so Mr. Owyoung is happy to take questions and comments.